What is that beautiful noise? Perhaps, is it that of a tired someone eating their dinner on a weeknight? It must be. From every corner of that round plate there is goodness to be tasted. With every bite, there is a sign of satisfaction. Every raise of that silver fork is resounding one statement. I want more. At the end of it all, there is just one solitary sigh of approval. Since the dawn of man, humans have been shoving what they call food down their throats as a way of sustaining themselves, which in turn allows their bodies to let them live. The first humans did not mind this. Whatever their bland, unsanitary, and outright disgusting food they were consuming was not complained about. But as their successors gained the first brains, they started to mind. They started worrying about how their food would taste, so they made spices, and later, artificial flavors. Then, they started worrying about how it would look, so they made it into art.
He's literally showing his butt crack.
Make sure people's systems would really allow them to let them live. They started making preservatives, and then pasteurization, and so many more methods that would make this video last for an hour if I explained every single one of them. I think you get the point now. They wanted better food. You may be asking, what exactly am I trying to say? Well, I don't really know either. There's just something really special about food, specifically about how it tastes. This was the very first culinary concern by humans. I am not the first person to say this. But the people who truly have embraced this opinion have brought taste to such a powerful level, basically creating a world of descriptors and terms that show what taste really should be. In turn, it has risen or even destroyed eating establishments in our own world. Who are these people who do such a thing? They're known as food critics. They work, well, to tell us how tasty our food is. And right here, right now, I'll try to become one of them. Game plan. For the next 12 days, from February 7th to February 18th, I will plan to document the dinners I'll eat, and then I will review each of them. Each component of these dinners shall be brought up, and then the meal will be rated on a scale of 1 to 10, with the reasons for these ratings being the best way I can do so. This is Mama, my grandmother, specialized in Chinese cuisine. She's been cooking dinners for me practically every day since I was born. She'll be the source of most of the dinners I will rate. Note how I said most of the dinners I will be rating. Sometimes the family gets bored and eats something else or goes somewhere else to eat. Sometimes dinner may be eaten already, taken from afar, or too much to handle. These issues are out of my control, but that's what makes this experiment beautiful. There's some variety in it. Plus, at the end of the day, it's just a review. Alright, this has been going on for too long. Let's go. We start off with day 1. Hopefully it's gonna be a good meal. That night's meal consisted of rice, a chicken drumstick, some pork chops, and some broccoli. As I review each of these meals, I'm gonna be showing a progression of how I ate them. Let's start out with the rice. It was crisp, just how I liked it. The chicken drumstick had a good amount of skin to be enjoyed with its own meat. And the pork chops, they were practically the best part of that meal that night. You'll attack me for vegetable bias later, but the broccoli, it was alright. Other than that, this was a pretty good meal. I'll say it's an 8 out of 10. 24 hours later, and here we are at day 2. Take your, it's gonna take a bit. The meal's coming soon. That night's meal consisted of some rice, some pork chops, even more pork chops, some steamed broccoli, and one tiny onion. Oh my god, just look at it! I also got some soup over here. It's not gonna be part of the review. And to be honest, it's pretty disgusting. Just take a look there and tell me that is not disgusting and that you would prefer to drink it every day. Tell them what you think about that soup, Pastor Milo. Now let's start reviewing. Everything was practically better than yesterday. The rice was even crispier. The chicken and the pork chops were still as good as they were with their skin and all. And that little onion was good. Even the broccoli was a little better. So at the end of the day, we'll probably have to give this one a 9 out of 10. Another 24 hours later, and we have our third day of meals. Tonight's meal consisted of rice, chicken, salmon, pork, and some string beans. This meal was unfortunately less better than the other meals. The pork tasted kind of funny and string beans had that acidic taste. I don't want to say this is bad because everything else tasted as it should, But compared to these other meals, this meal could have been far better. Therefore, I'll have to give this meal a 6 out of 10. Now we're at day 4. Why is this plate empty? Well, I forgot to record it when we once held a feta cheese sandwich that I made. It would have looked like this, just without the spinach. I don't even think we had spinach in that house on that day. We also had soup that day, but once again, that is not counting toward my review. Anyways, let's start reading this thing. I decided to make feta cheese sandwiches because I'd previously been making them and found them very delicious. The cheese just makes you do a somersault when you put it in your mouth. So, I would give this a 9 out of 10. It would have been our first 10 out of 10 if only I had been able to film the sandwich while it was still not eaten. Day 5, Super Bowl Sunday. I was at a relative's house and had a lot of food because they were holding a party. They had steak, sandwiches, chips, wine, and so many more food I didn't capture on camera because my iPad was running low on battery. Anyways, everything was pretty nice because we bought it from a store. So, I'll have to give this one our first 10 out of 10. If you were asking me if the game was alright, halftime show though, something was a bit off. Day 6, we're halfway through. That night's meal consisted of rice, chicken, ribs, and broccoli. Sorry for all the pauses, it's just very hard to sync my voice with the moving of the fork. The meal was alright. We saw ribs, which I hadn't seen in such a long time. However, it was so underwhelming compared to the previous day's meal. Also, the rice wasn't as crispy as it used to be, so it's a 7 out of 10 for me. But we're already halfway there, so let's keep on going. Day 7 now, and after a long day I decided to keep it simple with only 3 components. It's rice, pork, and broccoli. Like day 6, this meal was pretty underwhelming. So the solitary fork on that plate has told me to give this dinner a rating of 5 out of 10. Day 8. It is with great sadness that I say that I forgot to record the dinner for that night. This is all that was left of it. May you remember all the wonderful times it gave me. I have a tendency to click my tongue when I'm doing eulogies. Anyways, I don't really remember the components of this meal, but I feel like it must have been better than the other meals. Kind of did a harmony. So, I would have to rate it an 8 out of 10. Day 9. That night's meal was rice, pork chops, and broccoli. Common problem with meat I've had that I somehow haven't suffered from in these past 9 days is that it's too dry and chewy. This is the exact problem that happened here, and it irritates me a lot. The rice and broccoli didn't do anything to counter that, so I would have to say that this is a 3 out of 10. Our first under 5 rating. It's now day 10. We're getting close. Tonight we got rice, pork chops, and broccoli. It might have looked like I duplicated my meal from last night, but fortunately I didn't. Honestly, the pork chops were wet, and that's a good thing because it amplifies the flavor of the pork chop. The rice and broccoli still didn't do anything, but I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. 11 now, and if you haven't guessed already, it's Taco Tuesday, which is kind of weird because according to this calendar, that day ended up on a Friday. I swear, there were so many ingredients for that taco. We had tomatoes, we had lettuce, we had cheese, we had ground beef, we had onions, and so many more ingredients. When I eat them, all the ingredients start falling out, but when they're all together in my mouth, it's all one amazing symphony that I could still feel when I think of it. Absolute 10 out of 10. Pure Mexican goodness, and also, I recommend having a Taco Tuesday every once in a month. Finally, it's day 12. I was over at a relative's house for dinner. I had steak, yuca fritters, and a lot of cups of soda. Let me review each component individually. The soda was refreshing, and honestly, I'm a huge soda fanatic, so it's definitely a big plus for me. The fritters, I was skeptical at first because they weren't made of potatoes, but it caught on with me and I ate a bunch of them. The steak, though a bit chewy at the start, has a flavor that feels good on your tongue, and overall it's just pretty nice to have. So I like to give this one a nice old 9 out of 10 to end it all. And with that, those 12 days of dinners are now over. After those 12 days, 8 hours of working on a video for it, and 100 sessions of voice recordings, what have we, no, I have learned from this? Yeah, I know food is good and all, but what really is the lesson behind this? Well, that's for another time, because there are a lot of incomplete lessons I've learned. And in order to fully understand them, I have to keep on doing experiments like this. Would I suggest doing this? Yes, it's a very interactive activity, and you can learn to be a food critic just like I did. Being a food critic, from what I hear, is pretty nice. You can either travel around the world, have your own television show, or if you just want to keep it simple, write columns for a world-class newspaper. It seems fine to me. Even if you don't want to be a food critic, that's alright. But you should still do this one thing. Embrace ideas. You know how I was talking about how I didn't have any lessons completely learned from this thing? I lied. This was the lesson. Embracing ideas is what helped so many famous people like the Buddha become what they are known as today. He embraced the idea that good morals are amazing, and that what makes him such a deity-like figure within the Buddhist religion. Oh, and I also forgot my other lesson. I am terrible at this job.